Hello friends, Mr. E here, and today I'd like to discuss what is Fat Shark going to get up to for the remainder of this year, because I think that we are, hopefully, optimistically, about a week away from seeing them return to the dev chair and start to make blogs about what's going on with the game and continuing to do updates, continuing to do hotfixes, fixing existing issues, rebalancing, some stuff about Skitarii, maybe some other class rebalancing, some other weapon rebalancing, and then we have two major updates left for the year. There's a fall update and a winter update. Usually the fall update comes in like the second week of October or so, and then the winter update comes in the first week of December. It has so for the last 2 years running. So that means that, we do have quite a bit to anticipate here. And I am generally, I'd say, a pretty optimistic person. I like to get excited about what could be on the horizon for one of my favorite games, Darktide. You might have heard of it. And that isn't always the closest thing to reality. I do make a pretty good guess when there's like certain classes that are coming to the game, because there's hints and clues about those sort of things. But as far as what they're going to do with any updates, no one saw expeditions coming, and I was way too optimistic about that. So I think that in order to balance this optimism and give you a more realistic approach as to what we could be expecting, I've invited a co-host on for this episode. I'm Mr. E, of course. The E there stands for excited, eager, some other E word that represents a similar synonym. I've also invited on Mr. C. The C stands for cynic. He is going to give the much more realistic, grounded approach, the opinion that I think will probably end up very much tempering your expectations, because I don't want to set the expectations too high. Obviously, what I want is for Fat Shark to exceed my wildest dreams. However, as of yet, there has not been a single update that has ever exceeded my expectations. They have close to met, but they've never exceeded, because there always just seems to be like a lack of content. So that is what Mr. C is going to be giving you the angle from. So I'll break it down. We'll have Mr. E talk first, and he'll give a very excited, nice sounding, optimistic hope for the future, and then Mr. C will bring you back crashing to reality. We're going to talk about sort of 3 different junctures here, or 3 different time spans. The first is between now and the fall update. So what can we expect upon Fat Shark returning, leading up to that mid-October-ish update for the game in fall, and then we'll talk about the fall update itself. And finally, we'll conclude with what I think might be happening in the winter update, which will mark about 4 years since Darktide has launched. So, with that being said, let's let Mr. E here, myself, start with the optimistic take on what we'll be seeing when Fat Shark returns in the very, very near future, right? So they will return, optimistically, they will return this week, probably on Tuesday, to drop a hotfix. And I think that this hotfix will pick up right where they left off. They had said directly before leaving that when they return, they're going to be addressing issues related to vanguards, because vanguards are just kind of annoying to most players. They are going to be addressing issues related to our lovely Skitarii class, and especially their blitzes, because right now the Skitarii is an awesome character. However, it has 2 huge issues for me. One is advanced combat doctrines continues to drain all your charges, so I just don't feel like I can really play with that without just completely gimping myself. The second is that 2 of the blitz abilities on this class are going unused, because the third one, the Servo Skull, is so good, and it feels bad. I think it'd be so cool if I could have some extra ways to play with the Skitarii with the reworked the emitter shield and with the voltaic grenades. Those could be awesome. So that would be a very optimistic look at what we could be seeing there. Also, optimistically, we do still have sort of an unclosed thread from earlier in the year when Fat Shark was talking about their intent to reel in some of the game's excesses, because there's so many enemies on the screen and there's so much player power that the players can just wipe out hordes and hordes and hordes of enemies, and they wanted to reel that in. In that first iteration, they nerfed grenades for the veteran, they nerfed grenades for the Arbites, they nerfed the plasma gun, right? They hit the players with some nerfs, and they hit the enemies with a couple nerfs as well. They reduced bulwarks, they reduced crusher spam, all that stuff. That stuff was good, but it didn't go far enough. And notably, one thing it really didn't address is the Psychers. The Psychers with their Flame Staff, which can just do untold amounts of damage, does double the damage of any other character, fairly easily without even speccing into offensive abilities. You also have Venting Shriek, which is a cone that extends across the entire map and lights everything on fire and does even more damage off the back of that. The Psyker is just not a very balanced class with these tools at its side, and it is especially egregious when you're getting into some of the higher levels where the enemy spam is so crazy. Having this Flame Staff on the team is just simply game-breaking at that point. It does so much crazy damage, and it is in no small part responsible for why we have such an insane amount of enemies on the maps, because like players can kill it using tools like that. So I think a lot of players, when they saw them saying that, hey, we'd reel in some of the excesses, some of the really high player power outliers, that would have been one of them. They didn't hit it the first time around, but I think that they are coming back for it. So I think that hopefully they'll get that before we get to our fall update, and we'll see another set of weapon rebalancing. Maybe we'll even see some buffs for existing low tier weapons like your auto guns or whatever, but maybe that'll be saved for the fall update. Anyway, that's optimistically. Okay, now for a more realistic take. Thank you, Mr. E, for giving a completely inaccurate representation of what we're going to be seeing when Fat Shark returns. It's me, Mr. C here. Let's be honest. Fat Shark isn't gonna return this week, or if they do, it'll be with some absolutely lip service hotfix that fixes some sort of cosmetic clipping issue that no one was even aware of. Yeah, it'll take them until the first week of September to even do anything that they talked about with when they left, right? They just said that to keep us tided over, but yeah, there's no way they're doing that stuff on return. And also, we all know that they're not going to be changing the Skitarii in the way that we want, even though every single person in the fucking world is saying, hey, change the shield emitter to be a capacitance-based sort of thing. That's going to require too much effort and rebalancing. Nah, fuck it. They'll just give it an extra grenade charge, right? They'll give it an extra grenade charge and they'll make it have like more duration or something. Completely missing the point, completely missing why people aren't using that ability. They won't even touch the arc grenades because they'll say, you know, these are actually pretty good in our testing. Like these are equal to the to how good the servo skull is. No further addressing of the issue. It's also completely like delusional to think that they would return and do any sort of weapon rebalancing or stuff like that. They're scrambling to get stuff together for the fall update already, probably. You know, because they took so long to get back. They've only got like a little more than a month and a half to get ready for stuff for the fall. And I knew for a fact last year in the fall they were like looking around rapidly trying to find enough to scrape together to call it a major update, because they only do these quarterly updates to get enough out there, because it helps with like, you know, sort of quarterly reports, right? You always want to have a big update every quarter. That's the best from the business side of things. So they're just going to be kind of like saving anything, any changes, any major changes. That'll happen in the fall update maybe, but it won't be, there won't be anything of that sort coming between now and then. And we'll see another event, but it'll just be a reused event or something leading up to the fall update. Okay, so that's a pretty bleak take on what we could be seeing if we are anticipating Fat Shark to come back between now and fall. Now let's pivot over and talk about fall, the fall update itself. What could we anticipate in the fall update? Now, looking back at previous years, we had some pretty mostly stuff related to changing base game existing systems. So fall 2 years ago was a crafting update, the unlocked and loaded update, which overhauled the game's crafting system. That was awesome. That really revolutionized the game, brought a lot of people back. That was cool. Last year was a overhaul to the veteran, the zealot, and the psyker and their talent trees, which were sorely needed. It gave them a lot more power, it gave them a good amount more diversity, but this time around, right, we have a new character on the block, the Skitarii, who has put all these characters to shame. The new gold standard for class design is the Skitarii's tree, and hopefully when they were designing that, they realized the potential that there is here to bring value to the game by adding that sort of stuff to existing characters. Instead of having to print all these new characters, right? What if we took some of these elements and we incorporated them into existing characters whose main struggles are that, like, yeah, they just don't have a lot of diversity. You only get to really play with about 10 points, and a lot of builds end up feeling the same. That could give players much more effective content, and we wouldn't really have to do all that much. It's just a talent tree redesign. So that would be what I would hope we would be seeing in the fall for the major part of the patch, is class redesigns, class overhauls, especially for the Veteran and the Zealot. Those are my top picks for getting a sort of redesign like that. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a web-style tree a la the Skitarii, but it would certainly help if we had that freedom of choice like that. Just a major redesign of those characters in general to get them up to snuff, because I know they obviously see that there are some issues balanced there. Now, outside of that though, what else could we be seeing? Because usually there's like kind of a A plot and a B plot. There's a content part, and then there's a balance part. So last year we saw an upgrade to the Mortis Trials. The Mortis Trials had already sort of done its thing, and then it came back in and it did a little bit more. It just came back in and did like a tiny bit more of an update for Mortis Trials, gave it one extra map, and then gave it a few more archetypes to play with. I would hope that what we would be seeing in this, if they're wanting to put a little bit of extra content in there, but maybe not too much, is a continuation of the Operation storyline with No Man's Land, because they know that players are demanding maps. They saw how popular No Man's Land was. That was really, really a big hit with players. Maybe they got that ready for us and are continuing the story, especially if they're looking to continue the story in a big way with the winter update. So having that as a nice little piece of bonus content on the side, there's plenty of new toys for players to play with class reworks, new talent trees, probably some new weapon marks, or maybe even new weapons in general. We have seen like Melta and stuff, data mined. If they can get all that stuff together and then put a one operation in there, I think players will be very, very contented with that update. It might not bring in the most new players in the world, but definitely a lot of returning players and existing players will be very happy if their current classes got some overhauls. So that is a very I'm excited about that outlook. But Mr. C here, let me get straight with you. Let me just keep it 100% honest, because I don't want to blow smoke. I don't want to get you hyped up for something that's just 100% not going to happen. We know that they are not going to be concluded or like continuing the storyline for No Man's Land. That is straight up not happening. There's no way that there's going to be an actual map for this. And the doomer, the absolute doomer in me is here to tell you that it's expeditions. There's going to be more expeditions content. Because just like last year, we had Mortis Trials in the spring. They had some more Mortis Trials stuff they weren't quite done working on, and so they just kind of like puked the remainder of it on us in fall, because that was all they had in terms of actual game content to put out and package it as a major update. And they had some reworks for the characters, but it was like, not really tangibly all that different. I think that they'll do more expedition stuff. They'll tweak a couple of weapons. Maybe they'll change or like tweak one class or continue to tweak these talent trees. But there's also no way in hell we're getting Skitarii talent trees, because that probably took a lot of work. They probably got the team who was working on that character working on the next character for winter, because that's the only thing they seem to want to work on is new characters. So yeah, we're just definitely not gonna get this to have those overhauls, because no one else can apparently do it, right? No one wants to sit down and take the time, because well, think about it. You're not selling anything, you're not making any money by overhauling the Zealot. You're just players are already playing the Zealot. Most players think he's fine, right? It's only the like scarce minority of players that actually like want to see changes and stuff to this. So we'll just kind of like make some surface level changes to talents to give Mr. E something to talk about on his YouTube videos, and more expeditions. You guys love expeditions. We all love them. And that's it. Because, they got most of the team. There's 4 people working on this game total. So they'll probably just mostly be working on that class for winter so they can make some money. Okay. So yeah, that's the pessimistic outlook. Pretty bleak, but maybe not too far from the ultimate reality. And finally, let's give an optimistic Mr. E outlook on winter, the winter update for this year, which optimistically, very excitedly, I think that this could be a really, really big update for Darktide, right? Darktide has had its biggest year ever, apart from maybe the launch year, but like this year, bringing a Skitarii in has really, really boosted player counts. Something that they have said they wanted to do for a long time if there were unlimited funding on the field, and if there was time to do it and stuff, would be to introduce a new enemy faction. That was the number one thing that their game director said that they wanted to do. And I understand those things take time. They take a lot of time, right? However, we have had 2 full years without any continuation to the main storyline, with Rinda Karnak sacrificing her brother with some sort of occult Nurgle ritual through the Cult of Admonition, and that hasn't yet been paid off. We also haven't really seen any tangible updates to, well, there's been no new full-size maps, and no story stuff. So part of me thinks that because this is a big year, because Skitarii was such a big year, and because I know that they were anticipating a big year overall, that they will have a really big winter planned. And that would be in the form of a couple of maps, at least 2. I would think like a new whole storyline to play out in maps that are, they've been backlogging them, right? They've got a backlog of maps. They're going to play out a full additional part of the storyline, and this will also introduce our new enemy faction. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about enemy factions coming to Darktide over time. People say Gene Stealers. I think the easiest one to add first would be demons, would be Nurgle demons, because they have made a big issue out of the Cult of Admonition and their worship of Nurgle. Right, Rinda is directly involved in this. There is all sorts of prophecy related to the plague and the pox coming to Tertium, and all this stuff going on with the Cult of Admonition is directly related to that. And it could be part of summoning more Nurgle demonic forces into the fray, which could turn into maybe a couple of new elites or a variety of like normal type enemies that could change up how the game feels and plays. And we also would probably see a few specials and at least one boss. People are saying all sorts of cool stuff. What's it's like a rot fly or whatever that the Beast Nurgle is like the larval form of, so that could be our new boss coming. I think that a new enemy faction would provide a lot of life, a new take on the existing maps, if that enemy faction sufficiently alters the gameplay when you're going through them, and also having a few maps to introduce and continue to further the plot, because it's been 2 years. It's time to continue that plot and really get players into it, because I know that one thing that they really want players, especially new players, to be excited about is the lore behind Darktide, the way it connects to the greater universe. So that means that they got to do some plot stuff. So that would be really big for the game in winter. Of course, it'd be alongside a number of other like small balance tweaks and stuff, but that would be a major update. A couple of new maps and a new enemy faction to sort of add in with those maps, akin to the release of Beastmen, but please don't make them as busted as Beastmen. Okay, that's optimistic, but pessimistically, realistically, Mr. C here, it's just going to be a new class, right? We all know it. The only thing that Fat Shark has been interested in actually producing in the last 2 years has been new classes. What have we seen outside of the Hive Scum, Arbites, and Skitarii? Almost nothing. We have seen expeditions. We have seen 2 doses of Mortis trials, 2 dead game modes that no one plays. We've seen class balance changes, I guess, but that's not really new content. We've seen 1 operations map, and that's it. There's been no full-size maps. There's been no story updates. There's been no new voice lines added for over a year. They're done, right? They're cooked. So all they want is to milk Darktide for the money that it has left by selling classes so they can go on and make their next game. They don't have any real interest in continuing the storyline in any real way, and if they do, it's going to be way further down the line than, just a scarce, like, 4 or 5 months from now. There's no way that we're getting the long-awaited Gene Stealer or demon like invasion update, and yeah, that's just not gonna happen. I doubt if, because think about the amount of effort that would be required to create new enemies like that. We got the Vanguard, who is the laziest possible enemy in the world they introduced. That was the first new enemy in forever. They took out like radio gunners and stuff and haven't bothered to add them back in. And also a new enemy like faction that doesn't pay. That doesn't pay any bills, because you can't sell the enemy faction. That's just going to have to be part of the base game. So yeah, you're not going to be able to make any money off of that. And that means, therefore, it's not going to happen, because right now, I think personally, as Mr. C, the only thing that they really care about in keeping Darktide alive is that it is popular, and people will whale out money on the slop shop, and they'll whale out on new classes and keep those coffers full so that they can develop their next game and then pivot away from Darktide when they're good and ready. And that's the sad truth of things. Okay, so I mean, there you go. That's the overall grand spectrum of where I think we could be sort of heading in the remainder of this year. Now, I don't want to be as pessimistic as Mr. C is. That seems overly bleak, that there would be nothing better, but there is a ring of truth to at least one thing he said, which is that there hasn't been a whole lot of additional content to the game outside of the classes being added in the last year and a half or more. The invention of this new class idea seems to have put like everything else on hold, because like, holy shit, we can make money, and that really sucks. But part of me hopes that they are also, you know, sticking to their guns and realizing that there is very much a hunger for more content in this game, especially that people are very satisfied with the content. One thing that I think that maybe I've neglected to mention that I think would very much be in the optimist sort of bucket that we could be seeing in this year is weapon packs. That would be a very, very easy thing for Fat Shark to do and make more revenue to keep their revenue streams going. I know that there would be a lot of players who would downvote and, like, you know, absolutely like raise hell about, oh, they promised they'd never sell us DLC and now they're selling weapon packs. But I think players who legitimately play the game at this point would pay $5 for like 3 weapons or whatever, right? Especially if these are kind of cool weapons that add flavor to characters, like a flail or something for the zealot, like Ogren, like knuckle dusters, sort of thing like that. Those could be really cool weapons. I would say, however, do not put the melt-a-gun behind a paywall, because I think you'll get your offices firebombed if you do that, because that would be, yeah, the community would just lose their collective fucking minds if that occurred. But other than that, like adding more flavorful weapons, because the base game has a lot of weapons, right? There's a lot of content in the base game. Even if you're not playing with Hive Scum or Arbites or Skitari, you have a ton of weapons to play with, and you have a ton of class and a ton of value in the game. Adding more ways to play for players who've been playing for a long time, it can't be a bad thing, right? Just letting them have a couple of new toys to have fun with, that would be really, really cool. And selling that, I think we all understand this game is 4 years old at this point. It's not making any money off of the initial sales anymore. So I wouldn't lose my mind over it. I know there's some players who would, because they're going to raise hell about anything Fat Shark does, but Fat Shark, don't listen to the haters. Don't listen to Mr. C. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope to see you soon. Mr. E out of here. Mr. C already left. He stormed out in a huff and slammed the door. Have a good one, guys. Bye.